Hey, I'm Butterfly.
Hey, I'm Firefly.
Have you ever wondered if we aren't being told the truth about everything?
What have we been lied to about? Join us as we have conversations and ask questions about everything. We invite you to keep an open mind and consider the unfathomable.
Let's break the chains that enslave our minds. Come on, let's go down the rabbit hole.
What's up, Butterfly?
Hey, Firefly, what's going
I'm
on?
so glad to see you.
I'm glad to see you.
We're doing another episode.
We sure are.
Today we had a rabbit hole that's interesting because it kind of talks about how the cult agenda affects people inside of themselves.
I know. Well, we were talking about, I don't know if it was the last episode or one, it was one recently where we were talking about bottomless pits.
The Brea Tar Pits?
Yeah, remember you made that reference,
Yeah.
and then we talked about the buffets on on cruise ships.
Yes, that's
Like,
right. In the cruise ship
yeah,
mentality.
yeah, and you just become a bottomless pit.
Like the
So
400-pound dude who's at the buffet, and you say, "We just hit an iceberg and we're going to sink." And he just goes, "I'm just going to keep eating.
yeah, where's the roast beef?
Where's the roast beef?" So, what I was kind of thinking, so in that vein, um, the La Brea Tar Pits is right in the shadow of the Hollywood sign.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that feels like a visual metaphor.
Oh,
That feels like a visual
that's
metaphor.
a really good point.
And I think what's the metaphor? What's the kind of the takeaway from the Hollywood sign on the hill and the La Brea Tar Pits right there? Like if you were to take a picture from like a drone with like there's the La Brea Tar Pits and there's the Hollywood sign on the hill,
Right.
what kind of could be a takeaway? What I'm thinking
Gosh.
is Hollywood turns you into the La Brea Tar Pit
Yeah,
inside. And what do I mean by that? What are the characteristics of somebody who becomes the La Brea Tar Pit inside?
they're a bottomless pit.
They're a bottomless pit. What do we
Yeah.
mean by that? What do we mean by a bottomless pit is you're just this big walking appetite.
Yeah, I think that's what when we were just kind of having a little chit chat before we started recording, you were saying, are they conditioning us to become bottomless pits?
Are they conditioning us to become bottomless pits?
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. But I think like they start doing this from a very young age.
Very young.
You
I
know,
was thinking about that. So, like, we
yeah,
all grew up, especially you and me, in the era that we grew up in. You grew up watching TV.
yeah,
Now the kids grow up with a computer in front of their face, which is the same
right,
thing, only on steroids.
right. You too.
What are these things doing? We've kind of talked about how TV, social media, computers, all of it, movies, it's programming you.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's guiding you and it's guiding your behavior. And it's kind of
It's
suggesting
driving your behavior.
it's driving your behavior. It's Larry Fink. He's saying, I'm going to just drive behavior. But they're driving behavior too.
Yeah.
They're not just BlackRock, they're Hollywood. They're driving your behavior
Oh, for
too.
sure.
They're kind of part
Yeah.
of the same that,
Yeah.
Hollywood is like one of the divisions of BlackRock.
Totally.
So it's got the
That's like
same,
that's like a big division.
it's a
Like
big division.
they're really driving your behavior.
Yeah, they're driving your behavior. And so it's predictive programming. It's like, and it's suggestive.
Mhm.
This is what you should become. And so, what are they constantly suggesting to you from the time you're a little kid? Consume.
Consume and
It's
have more.
yes.
Have more. And when you get more, you still want more.
So what happens is from the time you're a little kid, you're being programmed to consume and to develop huge voracious appetites.
Yeah.
And then you become a bottomless pit because what I notice about the nature of humans is the more you satiate, the deeper your pit becomes.
It's so gross. It's like when you're in line at the buffet at the
Yes.
cruise ship, the more you eat, the more you want to eat.
It's kind of like if you never drink and you go out to the bar with a 25-year alcoholic
Mhm.
and you sit down and you match that person drink for drink.
Right.
The alcoholic is going to have a tolerance that's really high and be able to just sit there and get hammered all day. You're going to start Ralphing after like 15 minutes.
Yeah,
You know
after
what I'm
like
saying?
4 drinks, you're gonna be sick.
You're going to puke.
Yeah,
Why is that? Because the alcoholic has drinking all those drinks and satiated that hunger for alcohol.
but he still wants more.
He still wants more. You're never, that's the thing about a bottomless pit.
You're never satiated.
There's never a bottom.
There's never there's no bottom to the pit.
No,
It's bottomless.
you'll die before you reach the bottom. There is no
There is
bottom.
no bottom.
You just keep
It
going
just
down.
keeps going. Yeah.
And what I was also thinking is after you get subsumed into that tar pit,
Mhm.
you lead to your demise.
Yes.
You eventually die. You go bye bye. So that's why they want to turn us into bottomless pits,
They
right?
do. And you know what? They have bottomless pits. That's where
Yes.
the whole problem stems from, because they want more too. I mean, we were talking in some other episodes about submarines
Oh, yes.
and these rich people that like have to have submarines, and I was like, does anybody really need a submarine? I mean, really?
You know what that makes me think of?
It's just like one more thing to have,
Have
right?
you ever heard that term, keep up with the Joneses?
Right.
So, keep up with the Joneses is a phenomena that springs up out of being a bottomless pit.
Yeah, and it's like a keep up with the Joneses ism. Like it's sort of like a disease that everybody has to some
Yeah.
degree. Even little kids want the same toy that their friend has, or then their friend gets a different toy and then they want that toy.
Yep.
So it's like to
Even
some,
dogs will do that. You ever seen dogs?
yeah,
Like you have two dogs in the backyard and they're playing, and you give one of them a bone, and the other one's like,
I want
"Huh?
I want that
How
bone.
dare you?"
Yeah.
And then they'll do weird games like you ever seen dogs do this? Like the dog that doesn't have a bone really wants the bone
That bone.
because the
Yeah.
dog has the bone.
Yeah.
But when the dog doesn't care about the bone, that bone doesn't even matter anymore now.
Right,
It
right.
was because the dog had the bone that the other dog needed the bone.
Yeah.
That's kind of like
That's a good analogy.
that's kind of like what the cult does with people
Totally.
is they go, look, we know that you're a bottomless pit and that if you were to take stock on your life, you'd be like, wow, look at, I got to eat. I have a house. You have the rudiments of your life covered, but that's not enough.
No,
That's not enough. Why? Because that other dog has the bone and I
right,
want that. But then when that dog sets down that bone, that doesn't matter anymore.
right.
It's you want to have what they have when they have it.
Yeah,
That's keep up with the Joneses.
totally. So, like, when Tiger Woods got his bigger submarine,
It was larger.
Jeff Bezos wanted that kind of submarine.
That's right. And it was keep up with the Joneses, and it was emotional blackmail that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
Emotional blackmail is like, well, yeah, you have this, and that's fine. You can be content with that, but this person has this,
Mhm.
just so you know.
And, the people that have that, like, they probably have a higher social credit score. So, if you want to keep up with that,
Yeah.
you're going to want to get one of those.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then it becomes like an obsession, and they're keeping up with the Joneses out of an obsession. And then, even though you have $300 million in the bank, somehow that pales in comparison to the billionaire next door.
Right. It's just not enough.
It's never enough.
It's never enough.
So you become a bottomless pit. So now, when you're a bottomless pit, you have these voracious appetites that you have to manage, and you can never manage it because you're bottomless. So if you're bottomless, there's never a time where you're satiated. There's never a time when you're satisfied. Because right when you get done satisfying this need, there's another need arising.
Right.
So you're constantly in this paradox of always being hungry,
That's such a good point.
you know?
Yeah.
And so you're always hungry, you're always unsatisfied. And then what they can start to do now is they can start to say, well, you need to get your real ID.
Right.
Because if you don't get your real ID, you're not going to be able to satiate all those hungers that we know you have. And then you're going to be bummed. And we're going to throw in your face that other people who got their real ID, they are getting to satiate those desires. You can go to the Bahamas and go have one of those vacations where all of your drinking, sex, and food is included in one price. Your neighbor got to go there and you don't.
You're not gonna get any of those drinks with the little umbrellas.
No umbrellas for you. You're going to stay at home and just have your normal, boring life,
Yeah.
right? But all you have to do is jump through our hoops, you know? And the other thing, too, is I think that's why the cooties was so successful for the cult. That's the only way you can look at it.
It was.
Cooties was successful
It was.
for the cult. Why was it such a success? I would even say that the cult sat around looking at each other and patting themselves on the back
Oh,
and
yeah.
going, "That was way more successful than we thought
Yeah,
it was going to
they
be."
were all giving each other high fives.
They totally were.
Yeah.
What made Cootie so successful was we've talked about this. You threaten people's financial wherewithal, and they will go inject whatever dead baby you have.
Mhm.
They'll be like, "Dead baby, I don't care. Don't talk about threatening my
I
financial wherewithal.
I don't even care or wanna see what's in the ingredients, doesn't matter.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm a bottomless pit. My job affords me the satiates that I need, and that's all that matters. And if you threaten that, then I can't come to terms with that. I think that's what happens when you're a bottomless pit
Mhm.
is not being able to satiate your desires becomes unacceptable.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I can, no, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going to live that way. I'll kill myself. You know, I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
I think you're right.
So that
You
makes them pliable
yeah,
because you're a
they're ma
bottomless pit.
they're easily manipulated. So what do do we have any solutions for this?
White pill, yes,
Yeah.
you can.
You can sit and complain about what you don't have. I think what we started to talk about in our last episode, love, joy, happiness. What did we call
Yes,
that one? Happiness, love,
hope.
hope,
You
and
gotta
joy.
include hope. I think
Yeah,
hope is an important
hope
part
is
of it.
very important. That's the
Love,
white pill.
love and joy are part of it, but
Yeah,
hope is the part of it that you really have to have.
yeah,
Because if they can suck that from you, then you're just despair Eeyore
yeah. And
with a bottomless
you
pit.
can complain about all the things you don't have, but there everybody has something that they can be happy about. And I think I was thinking a lot about this after that episode that we did, and I was thinking, there may be some people who might feel despair. Maybe they're lonely.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have a lot of friends or any friends at all. And um, they might be thinking, well, I don't really have anything. But, there's things that you
Speaking
can
as a
do.
dude, like you don't really care if you have lots of friends, but if you don't have anybody in your bed with you, that's a real bummer.
That's a bummer too.
Yeah. Like you talk to most dudes and you say, you don't have a lot of friends. I'll be like, kind of glad about that.
Yeah.
But you make a good point.
But anyway, but I was thinking, but there are things that you can do. Like if you want to be around people, like maybe you like kids and you're a good person, you could go volunteer at like the Boys and Girls Club
That's
and
right.
help, like be a coach or something like that, or go to the community center and
Help
do
homeless people.
crafts with homeless people or older people or
Go work at a
whatever.
soup kitchen and serve soup.
That was a really good point too. Yeah, because then
Or just go find some homeless people and sit down and talk with them.
yeah.
I met this homeless lady one time, um, and it was I was walking my dog. It was early in the morning, and she was homeless, and she came up and she needed some money, and I just kind of talked to her like a real human being. I
Hmm.
wasn't condescending. I was like, "What's going on with you?
Mm.
What's going on? Are you looking for a job, or are you know?" And she started crying,
Oh.
and I said, "What's the matter?" She goes, "Nobody talks to me like you just did."
Oh my gosh,
All
that's
I
so
get,
sad.
yeah, she says, all I get is people being fake, condescending me, being dismissive, acting like I'm retarded because I'm homeless.
Mm.
And I was like, what's going on? And then she told me her circumstances, which were very real.
Hmm.
She had gnarly circumstances that she was going through, and no one was really taking the time to understand that. They were
Hmm.
just like, you're homeless. Yeah, go away.
Yeah,
You know, that's how blue pilled people are.
yeah,
Blue pilled people really, they become psychopaths.
right.
They
Yeah.
don't care about your homeless people.
Well, I've noticed something like I think a lot of people really want to talk about themselves. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Most people, like, if you give them time, they really just want to talk about themselves. But I think maybe
you were telling me about that one
yeah,
person who constantly talks about themselves, and then you listen patiently, and then you go to just say something, and they're like, "Oh no, not listening. I'm going to tell you more about me."
Yeah. There's a lot of people like that. And uh I used to work in a situation where I had a lot of those people coming and talking to talking about themselves to me all the
Yeah,
time. But I kind of noticed that I think a lot of people maybe just don't have anybody to talk to, and
yeah.
they also like talking about themselves. So, if you're a good listener and you want to be around people, you can always find somebody who's going to want to talk about themselves. You know what I mean?
Just go up to somebody and say, "Tell me about your problems," and
Yeah.
they will be happy to tell you.
Yeah, totally.
Because that kind of gets into another point that we were talking about is
And
people
can I make just
that
one more?
go,
But then there's a lot of people that don't want to be around people, and maybe they just like sitting at home and listening to us, which is fine too.
which is fine.
We're your friends.
That's where we'd like to be.
Yeah,
And if this is the dynamic that's conducive for you to feel like you're having camaraderie,
we're stoked.
more power to you.
Yeah, we're stoked because sometimes I don't like being around people either.
I'm happy then.
Yeah.
You know,
And we want to be like your friends that you can listen to and like share the same kind of ideas with maybe and
totally.
be stoked about.
And even
Yeah.
if you had something like maybe you wanted to reverberate, write a comment. I'll
Yep.
see it. If it's, the only comments we get right now is like, "We can make your podcast more successful." That's like the only comments we
Yeah.
get. But if we got some comment from somebody who was listening and saying, "You know what?
We really we
I'm
really
down for
liked it.
that,"
Yeah.
I'll respond to that. I'll find it.
So
Anyways, I was thinking there was another phenomena that arises out of this. When you're a
mhm.
bottomless pit, there's gonna be disappointment.
Right.
You're gonna have like maybe something that you want really bad
Mhm.
that you don't get to have. Kind of like a 2-year-old,
Yeah, and sometimes those people that want those things and don't get them, they kinda throw tantrums.
like a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, a 2-year-old, you go into the store with a 2-year-old and they go, my daughter used to put both of her arms out and go down the aisles and try to just grab everything.
Oh my
And I'd
gosh.
have to keep her right in the middle so she couldn't grab it. But sometimes she would go in. And she was good though. See, my daughter didn't throw temper tantrums like that. I wouldn't let her. If she started to do that, I would take her out. We'd go sit in the car, and she would throw a temper tantrum in the car.
Yeah.
But if she goes into the store and she wants candy and it's not time for candy, she gets told no.
Mhm.
And then even a 2-year-old like will come to terms with no.
Yeah.
They'll eventually move on.
Right.
Humans sometimes can't even act like a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
What happens is sometimes when you're a bottomless pit, you're not able to have something that you want really bad. And all you can do is throw a temper tantrum about it and you never move on.
Right.
Eventually, someone has to be there to say, "Okay, I understand that that was totally devastating and you're totally bummed. What are you going to do now?
What are you gonna do?
What are you going
Yeah.
to do now?"
Are you gonna just complain that you didn't get it or do something about it?
And I
Because
wonder if people get caught up in that.
it's
It's like
their
a paralyzing status quo.
yeah, paralyzing status quo. I think some people do and they become bitter, because they aren't getting or they don't have what they wanted in life
They
and
can't get over it.
they can't get over it. They become bitter. Um, but I
That's
think it
why that's
yeah,
the white pill of the bottomless pit.
yeah,
You have to unbecome the La Brea Tar Pit.
right,
How do you unbecome the La Brea Tar Pit? Is you learn to not be ruled by your desires so that outcomes aren't so emotionally impactful.
right. Yeah. And you
If
can
she wants to marry me or if she doesn't want to marry me, either way, I'm going to be happy with my life and
mhm,
who I am.
mhm.
It's not like if she says no to marrying me, I'm going to go kill myself. It's if she says no to marrying me and I'm single my whole life, I'm still happy. I don't need a woman in my life to be happy.
or something else.
I don't need to have this much financial
Mm.
wherewithal to be happy.
When we talked about like when one door closes,
Yeah,
another one opens.
that's right.
So, I mean, you could sit and be bitter about things for a long time, but eventually you're not going to want to live the rest of your life in that state. Like you can do something different to not be in that mindset.
I think what you have to do is realize that there's things in life that are out of your control.
Right.
And if you're a bottomless pit and you have all of these appetites that need to be met, then you're going to be disappointed because there's going to be times where you're not going to be able to provide what you want. And if you're allowing yourself to be emotionally impacted by that, you're going to constantly be bummed
Yeah.
because you're a bottomless pit. So every day you're going to have these different disappointments. And maybe what some people have is they want something that's not in their lives and they pine away about it for like 10 years, 15
Yeah.
years.
Such a waste of time.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they ruin their experience by being bummed about not having that. And I think the cure to that is not be a bottomless pit.
Right.
How do you not be a bottomless pit? I think you kind of have to learn to not be ruled by your desires. You don't have to live like a monk and completely turn off your desires, but you have to learn that not getting what you desire is nothing to be emotionally bummed out about. It's like, oh, well, I didn't get to have what I desire. That's fine. And that becomes like, that's fine. I'm not emotionally affected by whether or not I'm able to satisfy my desires. And I think the reason that the cult has made us bottomless pits is they know that we're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to spend our lives in this paralyzing state of disappointment and anxiety and fear. It's anxiety and fear. Because if you're a bottomless pit, you're really, really concerned about maybe not having that house work out or maybe not having that girl like you to the point where you're stressed about it. You're freaking out about it. You're ruining your here and now
Right.
because of hypothetical scenarios you're creating about your desires. So I think the cult has been very shrewd in that.
Yeah, because they're constantly putting out these messages that you should have more. And when you have
Yeah,
more, you need more still.
you still need more.
Yeah.
And that's why when you watch, like I always bring up that show Younger, but it doesn't even need to be
I
that
was
show.
just thinking of that actually.
Whoa, we're
Yeah,
always on the same page
I
like that.
know.
So, anyways, I was thinking just in Younger, but just like any type of show that you
Like
watch,
that.
especially these days on
Yeah.
Netflix, notice how the plot and the setting is like a suggestion of these are what you should have
Right.
in your life.
Yeah.
You should have this much sex, you should have this much money, you should look like this. And all of that is bottomless pit behavior.
Right.
Because now what the person who's watching those shows is doing is kind of taking stock on what they have
Yeah.
and going,
Well,
wait a second,
they make those shows like that's a good example because even the characters, like they'll say that they're, a certain level of whatever their job is or whatever, and they're living like the clothing and the lifestyle that they're living doesn't really match that. Like, do you remember the show Friends? Did you watch that show? Did you ever
I
watch that?
hated Friends, but
You
I've
did?
watched it.
Okay, well,
Ugh.
I mean, I think a lot of people mentioned, pointed out that like those girls were living in New York in this huge apartment that would have cost like an arm and a leg, and one of them was a waitress and the other one was, I don't remember what her
It was
job was.
totally
It
unrealistic.
was totally unrealistic.
Especially Joey and the other dork next door.
Yeah.
There's no way those guys are pulling down money to be living there.
Yeah. So it's like, I think, like what you're saying is people see stuff like that and they're like, wow, like those, that girl's a waitress and the other one's like a part-time chef or something, and they can live in this huge apartment and look at what I've got. I've got like, my thing isn't even close to that. And it's,
Makes me think of like even like the old school. Like, do you remember back in the 80s MTV?
mhm.
And remember what was big back then was like hair metal bands. And what were the rock stars doing? They were like on tour,
Mhm.
hooking up with chicks, rock and roll. We play concerts and we go back to the hotel and we party and we have sex and we do drugs. And they're portraying that as their lifestyle, which is
It was a
unrealistic.
bottomless pit,
They're bottomless pit, but also unrealistic, unattainable for, your
most.
typical Joe Schmo teenager
Yeah.
sitting at his house
Yeah.
going, I don't have that. I don't have all those chicks. I don't have all that money. I'm not traveling around. I got my boring life. And that was the cult making you feel disappointed about your life.
Yeah.
because they were saying, "Look at Janie Jane from Warren. He gets to go around and he's like admired, and he's on stage and he tours, and look at how exciting and fun their life is, and your life is your life." And that's kind of like the takeaway.
Yeah.
So kids, and now you're a kid, you might not have the perspective that you and I are having right now.
Well, I think I've mentioned this a few times, but like all these YouTubers um are pushing this whole lifestyle thing huge all the time too. Like they run around with like they're wearing like this obnoxiously loud Gucci t-shirts and Prada and all this stuff and just like putting this message out to kids that like, oh, I got this Louis Vuitton bag and this and that and like, so little kids are watching these shows that are seem like they would be innocent enough to watch, but the messages are there, you know?
That just gave me an epiphany.
What?
Do you remember a few weeks ago you went down to Orange County and
Hmm.
you went to the mall? Remember the mall had like, this is where the poor people shop,
And the rich people shop up here.
the rich people
Yeah.
shop up here.
Yeah.
That's part of the bottomless pit that they want you to become.
Right.
So they dangle that carrot and they say, you could have this.
Yeah.
And they want you, I think,
To attain.
I think what the
Yeah.
media wants you to do is come to the conclusion that my life is unfulfilling.
Yeah.
I don't have enough.
Yeah.
I need to have
I need to
more
be shopping on that level.
because that's what the cult wants you to have. You got to
Hmm.
have this drive to have more.
Hmm.
That's where
There's
they want
always
you.
more.
You need to have that drive to go become more. And so, how do you get more in our society? You go play the social credit score game.
Right.
And that's what Larry thinks. Like,
He is.
I'm driving behavior. How do they drive behavior? They turn you into a bottomless pit. They dangle a carrot that is unrealistic, and they make you feel like your life is unfulfilling and you don't have enough, and there's something missing from your life. And then they go make you jump through the rat maze
Hmm.
of the social credit score.
So how do we avoid this?
So I think you need to first recognize that my whole life I've been conditioned to consume.
Right.
You don't need to consume all the time.
No.
Like I always talk about red pill diet. Remember I brought that up a couple weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
What's a red pill diet? Like when I think about like okay, like me, my I gotta set up a healthy routine for myself. I gotta get rid of the weed and the monsters.
Yeah.
So that's eliminating like bad stuff for you. They call it dissipation. The word is dissipation. You ever heard that word? You know where I learned that was from John Wooden, the coach of the UCLA Bruins from the 60s.
Mm.
They never lost a game.
Wow.
And he had this very regimented pyramid of success that all the kids on his team had to do, and they never lost a game.
Oh,
And
that's
all they would do
interesting.
is just train and then discipline themselves, get into a routine, and then follow the routine all the way to the championship game. And one of the things was eliminate dissipation.
Mhm.
But you also have to have a good diet. And so the way that you stop becoming a bottomless pit is you prescribe yourself a daily intake that's adequate and healthy, and you don't exceed that. You have yourself a healthy breakfast in the morning. Like I used to just have like a smoothie, make myself a smoothie.
Mhm.
That's usually enough. Maybe some tea, and then have like a salad for lunch. And then for dinner, I'll just have like steak and a salad, no dessert. And then when I start doing that, I feel great. I get in shape and
Mhm.
I feel good. Plus, when you have less appetite, you're happier and filled with joy.
It's true.
When you have huge appetites and you're satiating all the
You
time, you
just want more.
you just want more.
Like when you talked about that one time when not too long ago that you ate a box of strawberry milkshake frosted flakes
Yes,
and you ate like almost the whole box
yes,
and then you and then the next day you wanted more
I ate the whole
and you
second.
ate the whole second part of it.
That's right.
So that is like an example of how you were sort of a bottomless pit that day.
Totally.
Yeah.
The bottomless pit can creep in.
Mhm.
And that's why I bring it up is because I'm not acting like I'm better than other people. I am in the process of transitioning from a bottomless pit into, I don't know what you would call not being a bottomless pit,
Bottomed pit.
a bottomed pit. You're somebody who you're, yeah,
You're a
you're
pit at the
basically
bottom.
Basically, you're transferring from a bottomless pit into somebody who's not ruled by their desires,
Yeah.
you know? And then we've also kind of talked about how some people suck from you and they
Hmm.
don't give anything.
Yeah. I think we're going to do a whole episode on that.
We're going to need to do a whole episode on
Yeah,
that. But I think that bottomless pit kind of creates that.
it does.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas when you turn into the person who now I have control over my desires and now I give, I'm not constantly sucking. I give.
You do.
And that's interesting because, they say it's better to give than to receive.
It is. It makes
You
you feel so good.
you feel better.
Yeah.
So bottomless pit makes you selfish and self-absorbed, and those people are lonely and nobody really likes you because every time I'm around you, all you're doing is just like smoking my weed and
And
asking me for
complaining
stuff.
and
Yeah.
complaining.
Complaining.
Hmm.
And they got a hole in their bucket and they're always gonna have a hole in their bucket.
Right.
You know what
That's
I'm
a good,
saying?
yeah, that's a good
But we
analogy.
were going to talk about that in another episode because that is a whole nother episode.
That is another one
The
too.
suckers with the hole in their bucket. We'll
Hmm.
talk about that, but that pertains to this episode too
It
because
is.
when you become a bottomless pit, you're self-absorbed.
Hmm. Yeah. I think the remedy is to realize that they're conditioning us in society to be like that and just to reject that notion. You know what I
We
mean?
talked about that earlier too.
Yeah.
When you're a bottomless pit, you've got a choice. Okay, I can go keep up with the Joneses
Hmm.
and go play the social credit score game. And that's kind of what people do. So people come to the realization like, I'm a bottomless pit. They might not even be self aware, but
Right.
they are. Americans are bottomless pits across the board because we all grew up being programmed by the media to become
Hmm.
bottomless pits and consumers. So everybody's a bottomless pit, but there's people dealing with it in different ways. What we're saying is, I don't want to be a bottomless pit anymore. What they're saying is, the way that you manage being a bottomless pit is you play the social credit score game.
Hmm. And you're never going to have enough. It's a bottomless pit.
You're
Like,
never going to
remember we
have enough.
talked about that one lady who was like, I only have 50,000 followers. And she was so
Amazing,
upset.
Polly.
She was so upset about that. Um, so I mean,
Whereas we would be
to us that
stoked.
sounds huge, but like that's not enough for her, you know. And then there's probably people who have a million followers, and I always hear these like YouTube guys going, "Oh my gosh, I just hit a million followers. I'm having this huge celebration." And I'm like, "What? Does that really matter? Does
Well,
that really? I mean, I guess
you
they're
know what's
making money
weird?
off of it, but
Bottomless pit doesn't necessarily just mean eating and fucking.
yeah,
It also means who likes me?
yeah."
How popular am I?
That's my point. It's like that has turned into a whole social media thing. It's a bottomless pit. Social media is a bottomless pit.
It turns you into a bottomless pit, but it's a different kind of bottomless pit. It's like a blue pill. It turns you into a psychopath. And the reason is because you now are never satisfied with your social media settings.
No.
Because there's always and I think this is all contrived. There's an influencer. Look at how many followers I have. Look at when I post something, how many likes it gets. And if you're just somebody, just regular, you're not an influencer, you're going to look at that and say, oh my God, I feel so. That's what I think the cult wants you to feel
Inadequate.
inadequate. I'm disappointed
Lesser
with who
than.
I am. I'm less than, and I'm really just disappointed in what I am and what
Mhm.
I have because I've been shown somebody who has quote unquote more.
Right.
And that's what they do.
Yeah.
So that's the game.
That's the game. And we don't have to play it.
You don't have to. You don't have to become a bottomless pit.
Mm-mm.
So what they're gonna do is they're like, so the answer is win the reality show.
Yeah.
Don't get voted off. I'm saying the answer is don't play the reality show and don't become a bottomless pit.
Right.
Love,
Joy.
joy, and hope is the answer. And love, joy, and hope don't really exist if you're a bottomless pit.
So true.
You're not really going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You don't have any hope
Yeah.
because you're too devastated by the disappointment of your bottomless pit not being a musician. So you're already disappointed. There's no hope in the future because you're disappointed now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I thought that was a good.
I thought that was a good thing to talk about. I thought it was a good follow up to our last
We don't
episode.
always talk about politics. We
No.
don't always talk about like what some podcasters who are in, like kind of reading the tea leaves of the news.
Yeah.
But this pertains
Yeah.
because this is what the cult turned us into.
It's society and culture, you know, and it's what the media is pushing. So it's all a rabbit hole.
Well, I know that people might think that I have delusions of grandeur, but I believe that our show is not entertainment. We're trying to bring about social change. We're trying to change the world and save the world.
Yeah, yeah, we are.
The world is in danger
Yeah,
right now. The world's in a perilous place, and it's because people are sleepwalking.
totally.
So what are we trying to do? We're trying to figure out what are the rudiments of this spell that people are under.
Mhm.
And one of them is we're we've been controlled by the media to become bottomless pits. We don't have to be a bottomless pit. If you can stop being a bottomless pit, we can start to change the world because of that.
Exactly. Great point.
Well, that's awesome.
That was
I'm so
awesome.
glad I got to see you again.
Me
Do you have
too.
anything else you want to say about that one?
No, I think we have another rabbit hole we're going to go down very soon.
We did. That opened up another can of
It
worms.
did.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll
bye.
talk to you soon.